Okay, so now let's start the new topic, that is the body fluid compartments, and these are the learning objectives. At the end of the class, you must be able to discuss the interrelationship among the major body fluid compartments, intracellular, extracellular, and how they are divided, how they are affected, right? So this is showing daily intake and pardon? Yeah. So this list showing how much is the average daily intake and output of water. Generally, we are taking intake or output, means intake almost like 2 liters, something around the 2 liter. So intake is fluid ingested, generally 2100 or 2.1 liter. From metabolism, almost metabolic by the breakdown of especially glucose, okay, along with the oxygen they are giving the carbon dioxide and water. So from that metabolic activities, around 200 milliliter water is output there. So total intake is, total in our body intake is 2300 milliliter, and that same amount is the output to balance our body. So insensible skin by perspiration, insensible perspiration 350, by lungs 350, sweat generally it depends on our body activity, feces 100, urine 1400. So total input, if we are taking more water, then what will happen? Output will also be more. So they are balanced. All this water, when we take total body water, okay, generally with us around 60%, in an average adult person, 60% of the body weight is around 60% of the weight is water, right? That is variable with the body build. Like someone is obese person, what will happen? There is extra fat. So fat that will reduce the water content. If person is lean and thin, young, water content is more. This total body water can majorly divided into 2 parts, intracellular and extracellular. Intracellular means cytoplasm, nucleus, there the water is intracellular water. Total, if you take as I told, 60% of the body weight. If someone is 70 kilogram, right? So 60% of the 70 kilo, it will come around 42 liter. So 42 liter water there. Out of 42 liter, intracellular is 2/3 of the total body water. So out of 42, 2/3 if you take, it will come around 28 liter. 28 liter is the intracellular content here, intracellular fluid. You can see here 2/3, then 1/3 is extracellular, and the major barrier between intracellular and extracellular is cell membrane. We know cell membrane is permeable, semi-permeable. It is selectively permeable. Some ions are allowed to pass, some ions are not allowed to pass. Like water can pass easily. Okay, so again, extracellular fluid can be divided into the 2 parts. One is they are contained into the blood vessels, that is the plasma, and plasma is separated from the interstitial fluid by the capillary membrane. So interstitial fluid is in between the cells, fluid in between the cells. So 1/3 of the total water is into the extracellular. Out of this, okay, So 20%, if you take total body weight, 20% is, 40% is intracellular, 20% is, 1/3 is extracellular. Out of this, 5% is plasma, 15% is around 15% of the total body weight is the interstitial fluid. Okay, so total is extracellular fluid is 14 liters. So output input is almost same, right, to make the equilibrium in our body, a steady state in our body. So here you can say, you can see this is the plasma membrane. Okay, so this is the capillary or blood vessel, and plasma, it is contained into the blood vessel, then interstitial fluid and intracellular fluid, right? So daily loss of body water depends on the vapor pressure of the inspired air. When very dry, then what will happen? The evaporation from the body is more. In cold weather, atmospheric vapor pressure decreases to nearly zero, causing an increased loss of water, okay, from the lungs as temperature decreases. Why we feel more dry in the cold weather? Okay, or extensive burns, because the rate of evaporation is more, right? Evaporation can increase as much as 10 times, from 3 to 5 liters. So according to that, to balance, to make equilibrium in our body, we need to take more water. This is showing total body water content in how it varies. So in young age, it is more, water content is more. When we are getting older, this water is replaced, and our body getting more fat or more high tissues, then water content will decrease. Another thing is body build. Obesity will cause less water content, right? In an adult male, it is 60%. In female, look here, it is, even she is lean and thin, but 50%, because female having more cutaneous fat content there. When we are getting older, fat content will be more. Yes? Size as well as, no. If male and female is of the same size, right? Male and female is of same size. Female having more fat content into the comparison to the male. Our male skin is more rough, right? But female skin is more soft. Why? Because of the fat content is more there. So factors affecting the total body water is, one is age, another is our gender, our sex, male, female, then obesity, body content, right, age, etc. So this is the quick review. Extracellular fluid divided into the fluids, plasma, interstitial fluid. Plasma is only 5% of the total body weight. 15% is interstitial fluid, and 40% of the body weight is into the intracellular. So 2/3 here, 1/3 is this total. And transcellular fluid is fluid which is circulating, right? Like this. Okay, so you can see here total body water around 60%, 20% extracellular, 40% intracellular, 1/3, 2/3 here. This is showing the barriers, intracellular and interstitial fluid. Barrier between them is cell membrane. Cell membrane is selectively permeable. You can see here sodium, potassium, concentration here. Sodium is low inside the cell. Potassium is high inside the cell. What causes this difference, concentration difference of the sodium and potassium? Mavi, we studied what makes this difference inside the cell. Sodium is very low while potassium is very high. Good. Sodium potassium pump, that is helping to make the concentration gradient, and this gradient is utilized to carry many things, right, by the secondary active transports. Protein is almost very large size. It is permeable or impermeable? Impermeable, right? So how this protein, because proteins are synthesized. What is the source of protein? Where the proteins are synthesized? Which cell organelle? Cell organelle. Rough endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes. They are found inside the cell or outside the cell? Inside the cell. So they are synthesized inside the cell, but all cells are not synthesizing, right? Most of the proteins are synthesized in which organ? Liver. Liver is a major source of protein, and from there it is transported throughout the body. How it is transported? Protein is a very large. Is it going by diffusion, simple diffusion, or active transport, passive transport? What is the way of transport? Which one? Which type? Primary active transport? Your view? You have to be careful. Which one? Be louder. No. Secondary, primary, that is for the ions. Protein is a very large to go through the carrier protein. Endocytosis, exocytosis, right? It is contained in the vesicle, endoplasmic reticulum. From there it is going to Golgi body, and it is contained in the vesicles, and these vesicles, that large containers, they have to be shipped very, right? Okay, so that is the way. Okay, so it is almost impermeable. Their concentration is high here. Interstitial fluid almost zero. Again into the plasma it is more, right? Plasma contain protein here, right? How much is the protein there in the plasma? Generally 6 to 8% of the blood volume is protein. If you take blood, 6 to 8% is protein. Okay, so what happens? Look here. Total osmolarity. Osmolarity means number of osmolarically active substances. Total how much here is? 285. Interstitial fluid osmolarity 285. Here what is osmolarity? 285. Almost everywhere same. Why we are discussing about the osmolarity? Because that is determining movement of water. Other ions almost impermeable. Then water can move easily, right? Water can move easily. Water is allowed to pass through the special channels there, right? If something is passing through the ion channel proteins, what type we category we putting them? Active or passive? Passive. And which one? Rate limited or rate indefinite, means simple diffusion, indefinite rate. Facilitated diffusion, rate is limited, right? So this water channels or any channel protein, when something is opening, they are going through the simple diffusion or peripheral. Simple or facilitated diffusion, which type? This one, protein, water is going or sodium is going through the channel protein. It is what type of transport? Hmm? I told you. Huh? Which one? Why simple? What is the difference between simple and facilitated? Remember, simple is by channel and facilitated by carrier. So carrier is like a tonsil gate. It is a rate limiting, right? But channel, bridge, longer, right? Good. So this thing we have to remember. Which one? Channel is simple diffusion, like sodium channel, potassium channel. If it is opening, it is going from higher to lower, right? And its rate is depend on how long it is opening and what is the concentration gradient. So total osmolarity is same in all these compartments. What will happen to the net movement of the water? Always water is following concentration gradient, means osmotic, right, force, osmotic pressure. So osmotic pressure will be same, so net movement of the water is 0, right? Net water of the movement is 0. When you are drinking water or when something happens, they are getting disturbed, right? If you are adding one part like this one, this you making interstitial fluid, or this one plasma you diluting it. If you are diluting the plasma, water more here, what will happen? Water will go or come? If you are diluting here, plasma suppose, diluting, what will happen? Yes, water will go from the higher water side to lower water side, right? This is the thing we have to remember, because other things are not allowed. So capillaries have a low permeability to the plasma membrane, plasma protein, right? So proteins are contained into the capillaries, and interstitial fluid, how much protein there? Almost 0, right? Normally almost 0. So because of protein, what will happen? It will cause osmotic gradient, right? It is a solute molecule, so it will try to absorb water. Higher concentration of protein in the plasma, they are the main determining the osmotic pressure. Positively charged ions, right? Because of this negatively impermeable ion, negative charge always prefer positive charge, right? So positively charged ion is slightly greater in the plasma, but for practical purpose we are keeping both, considering as a constant, as a norm, same, right? But what happens in the plasma, more protein there, and that will, protein is negative charge, so it will attract positive charge. So total osmotically active osmolarity is slightly more for the plasma. That is called Gibbs-Dolan effect. Okay. That is called Gibbs-Dolan effect. So negatively charged ions tend to have a slightly higher concentration in interstitial fluid because of they are attracting the positive charge. So what will happen? Negative charge will be slightly higher, right? But for practical purpose, what we are considering, all are considered normal. Okay, so what happens? Net movement or movement of anything happens with two type of forces. Two type of forces determining the movement of the either ion or water or whatever there, right? One is electrical gradient. Electrical means negative charge, positive charge. Like just we describe, if here proteins more they are synthesized into the cell, right? So these proteins are negatively charged. What will happen? They will try to attract positive charges. They will try to attract positive charges, right? So that is called electrical gradient. If any positive ion is allowed to permeate, allowed to pass, like sodium. So what will happen? Sodium will be attracted inside or outside. It is attracted inside by the protein, right? So electrical gradient is favoring it, right? Electrical gradient inside is negativity, so that is favored by this is the electrical gradient. Another gradient is chemical gradient, right? Chemical gradient. So chemical gradient means concentration difference. We know inside the cell sodium is low, outside the cell sodium is high. So what is the chemical gradient? It favoring influx or efflux. It favoring inside, both electrical as well as chemical. For the sodium, it favoring influx of the sodium normally, right? Another, consider the potassium. Potassium is positive charge, so it is electrically, it is attracted inside or outside. Potassium, it is positive charge, inside is negative. Electrical gradient I am asking. Positive is always attracted by the negative, right? So what happens? Inside is proteins are negative charge. So electrically they are favoring the entry of the potassium. But we know potassium chemically it is more inside the cell, right? Inside is around 145, outside is only 5. Right? So what happens? Chemically it is causing higher concentration to lower concentration. So it is going out. Right? Electrically inside, chemically outside. Two opposing forces on the potassium. Right? For anything, two type of forces, electrical and chemical. But for the sodium, both are causing inward movement. Right? Chemically as well as electrically. So you can consider, you can.
What is the two opposing force trying to achieve?
What?
The two opposing force.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What are they trying to achieve?
No, I am separating first to make you understand. Right? What happens? Let me. Suppose nothing there, right? There it is more negative. Any positive charge, it will favor the, electrically it will favor the entry of positive charge. Right? This is called electrical gradient. Electrical gradient. Another is chemical gradient. Chemical means it will go from high to low. So you have to know where it is high, where it is low. Like potassium. What is the chemical gradient for potassium? Here it is 150. Outside is high. So when it is allowed to pass, what will happen? It will try to go outside. Right? Chemically it will go out. Electrically it will try to come in. Right? Two type of process. For the sodium, outside is 150, inside is 10 or 15. So what will happen? It will try to come. Chemical, right? And electrically it is a positive charge, inside negative. So both are in favor of entry. Both are in favor of entry. Right? So what you trying to say? Now let's discuss what is the net. We separated two type of forces. One is electrical force, another is chemical force. Right? So which one is stronger? We have to measure both. Right? So chemical gradient we measure in terms of concentration difference. More is the concentration difference, more will be the entry or exit. Flux, we say flux, right? More will be the flux of the ion. Right? And how to measure the electrical gradient?
The charge is
Yes. So how to measure electrical gradient, electrical charge, that is in the volt. Electrical difference, electrical gradient is measured in the volts. We have two wires, right? One is called positive, another is negative. So why negative, positive? Because the electron density is more here, negative. So it will move from one side to another. Electrical gradient, right? So more is the electrical gradient. So what is the unit for electrical gradient? Millivolt, right? Millivolt. So more is the millivolt, and generally cells are inside negative. Cells are inside negative. When you measure, that is called potential difference. Like when you have a battery, something you are bringing this one to the, you have some problem in the laptop or any electrical device. First thing, the mechanical person, what they doing? They will check with the ammeter whether a battery is working or not, right? So potential difference, if you put two sides is connected, how much is the potential difference between the two sides? That is called electrical gradient, right? Electrical gradient. That is measured in volt. So what is the rest, and also called resting membrane potential? Which for what? No. Efflux or influx depends on which type of ion we are talking and which one is stronger. Like this is the cell, right? I think you must have some idea about what is the resting membrane potential. That is the electrical gradient, right? That is measured, that is called resting membrane potential. Like how much membrane potential difference or capacity of the battery, it is given in the volt. Like generally we have this home use battery, 1 point written there, plus 1.5 volt, right? So what is that volt? When the gradient between the two sides, negative and positive side is 1.5, right? How to measure it? When mechanical person, electrician, is connecting two sides, right? Then that will show how much is the voltage difference, right? So in the meter it will show 1.5. Similarly, when you measure normally cells like neurons, muscles, they are more they are excitable cells. When you put two side, measure two side, inside is here generally negative because of this protein ions, right? And outside this will try to attract the positive charge, right? Like sodium, protein is also not permeable, this one is also not permeable, right? So what will happen? They will attract each other and they will make a layer here, right? So what will in the when you put the electrodes, measuring electrodes on both sides, you will get how much voltage difference there generally. That is called resting membrane potential. How much? Minus 72, minus 90 millivolt. Minus 72, minus 90 millivolt. Okay. Why inside is more negative? Because of impermeable protein. Okay? Impermeable protein. Now, we are, so any positive charge, because of this negativity inside, any positive charge, okay, having electrical gradient to move inside, including potassium, sodium, or any positive charge. Is it clear? Electrically, because inside is negative.
Yeah, electrically, what?
And how electrical is difference. How strong it is, it depends on this membrane potential. right? It depends on membrane potential. This membrane potential is like minus 70, minus 90. Which one is more negative?
Minus 7.
Huh?
Minus 7.
Which one is more negative?
More negative.
More negative. Minus 70 or minus 90?
Minus 90.
Yes. Minus 90. So more negativity there, it will cause more electrical gradient. Sodium will pass more at minus 90 than minus 70. Right? It becomes slow at minus 70. Right? When it inside becomes positive, then it is electrical gradient is opposite, change. You got it?
Yeah.
So electrical gradient, how strong it depends, that will cause more. Right? Is it clear?
Yeah, but I just want to.
No, I tell you.
Yeah,
what
the
positivity
concept
is.
is clear. The concept is clear, but I just want to know the chemical and the.
Yes, that I have not taught. I have not taught chemical to make you right. It will confuse it. So first you got it.
So the electrical force going is that flux.
If flux, we use the term for coming outside. EFFLUX. In means going inside. Influx and opposite is efflux. Right? We use the term. Outflux is better probably, right? Outflux going out, influx coming in. Right? When inside become positive, what will happen to electrical gradient for sodium? It will go outside. Because inside positive, when it is positive, I have plus. Right? So if you change inside polarity, then it will be repulsive, causing outflux of the sodium. Right? More is the negative inside, it will go more. That is the electrical gradient. Right? Now come to the chemical gradient. Chemical gradient depends on concentration difference between the two sides. Right? Concentration difference between the two sides. Now, talk about the sodium. Sodium is generally how much outside? Oh, this is the permanent. Who put it? This is like permanent. You don't have to use this. Okay. So what happens? Chemical gradient. It is a very simple. What we study. Outside sodium is more 150. Inside is 10, so it will go inside. Right? Now, coming to your question. You got two type of gradient, chemical gradient and electrical gradient. So you are combining both, right, together. Which one is stronger in determining your movement of the ion? You got it? Chemical and electrical together. Which one is exceeding? That will determine the net movement of the ion. Actually, we will discuss in detail in resting membrane potential, electrophysiology. And what causes the sodium potassium difference is sodium and potassium ATPase, right? Sodium potassium ATPase, and this sodium potassium ATPase, by this it is helping to balance helping to control the volume of the cell, because if more sodium is retained into the cell, osmotically more active, it will retain more water, right? So swelling starts, cell swelling starts. And how for the continuous function of the sodium potassium pump, you need continuous supply of ATP, right? So what happens if ATP is not supplied? If blood flow to any organ you stop intentionally or by the pathological condition, what will happen? The sodium potassium is not maintained, swelling takes place, right? Because of continuous leaking of the sodium inside the cell. If sodium is leaking, water is also contained there, it becomes swelling. Summary of the pressure across the vascular valve, like here. Okay. So we discussed electrochemical. What is electrochemical? You got it, right? Another thing, oncotic pressure, you got it. What is oncotic pressure? Osmotic pressure, movement of the water. More oncotic pressure, more will be the movement, right? Another pressure, we use the term hydrostatic, you know, right? Hydrostatic pressure is pressure exerted by the liquid, right? We know this plasma or blood is contained into the blood vessel, right? So they are exerting force on the wall of the blood vessel and pushing it outside, trying to pushing it outside, right? So that pressure is called hydrostatic pressure. That pressure is called hydrostatic pressure. What determines hydrostatic pressure, or we say blood pressure? If more blood is squeezed by the heart, right? More blood is coming into the blood vessel, it will cause more stretch of the blood vessel. Pressure will increase, right? More pressure is increasing, and especially at the level of capillary. Capillary is permeable, water can easily exchange, other ants are also exchanged, right? So what will happen at the capillary when pressure is high, hydrostatic pressure? That will cause inward movement of water or outward?
Outward.
Very good. Outward movement, right? Outward movement is by which pressure? Hydrostatic pressure. Clear? Another pressure there, that is the osmotic pressure in the blood. What is osmotic pressure? It determined by the number of solutes. It is determined by the number of solutes. So look here.
Wait, you said oncotic pressure is determined by the numbers of sodium.
Yes, number of sodium, number of potassium, number.
What is the number of the protein which is albumin that controls?
Very good, very good. You are now coming to the point. What happens? Sodium number we saw here in this slide, I think. Here, this is the blood plasma, right? And they are in exchange with the interstitial fluid. Here, look. So sodium is almost same, right? That means they are permeable. Potassium, chloride, right? So it is only, you got right point, that protein is not leaking generally, right? So when blood is coming from the artery, right, aorta, then artery, their pressure is high, right? High pressure. By the time it is going to the capillary, means arterial end of the capillary, still pressure is high, and it is causing, because of the high hydrostatic pressure, water is leaking. Water is forced to go outside into the interstitial fluid. When water is going outside, what will happen to the blood volume? Decreases. Decrease volume means pressure will, hydrostatic pressure will reduce, right? And blood is getting more dense. Blood is getting osmotically, it is more active because number of solute will increase. Only water is going, right? Water is going more in comparison to other. So what will happen? It will increase the osmotic gradient by the time it is traveling to the venous side of the capillary. So it will be favoring absorption. This outward movement of the water is called filtration. Then inward movement is called absorption. Not reabsorption, absorption simply, right? So there is balance normally between the absorption. So you got what causes absorption, what causes filtration, right, at the blood level, right? And what is the causing net movement of the water? Any positive ion, negative ion, electrical and chemical gradient. So balance between the electrical and chemical gradient. We have to look which one is higher. So what is Gibbs-Donan effect? Because of the proteins that is impermeable, they are contained into the plasma. This impermeable plasma protein is retaining more positive charge also. That's why osmotically slightly more active part in the plasma in comparison to the interstitial fluid. So summary of the pressure across the vascular wall, right? Anything here, if you add water, if you are drinking water, what will happen? From the stomach, it will go into the, first it will go into the, retained by our intestinal wall, right? Most of them are absorbing into the stomach. Then it is going into the interstitial fluid. Okay, it is going into the through the plasma. So plasma volume will increase. If plasma volume increasing, what will happen? Which pressure increasing here? Hydrostatic or oncotropic? Good. Hydrostatic more means water will move into the interstitial fluid, right? And they are all are getting, when water is going in both sides, both become diluted, right? Both become diluted. So let's see here. Summary of pressure in a peripheral capillary. Look here. Arterial side, what happens? Hydrostatic pressure is more, 45. And oncotic pressure, how much? 25. That depends. The difference between the solid molecule outside and inside. Sodium, potassium, etc. They are small and they are permeable through the capillary. But protein is not permeable. That's why protein is the major, source of the osmotic pressure. So net movement will be what is happening here at the arteriolar movement, arteriolar end. There is net movement of the water outside, filtration, and water movement will decrease the volume. So what happens here? Pressure become hydrostatic only 15. Right, oncotic is increasing slightly because of the solid number is more here, right? So what is the net rate here? It is favoring absorption, right? It is favoring absorption. Right, so they are in equilibrium. Our body, intracellular, extracellular fluid is in equilibrium and they are balanced by the kidney. What is here showing? Like cell, right? Cell, generally what is the osmolality of the cell? You must remember. How much in previous slides? Z. How much is the osmolality? 285. You can answer even 300, no problem. Millismol per liter. Right? Millismol per liter. This is showing the experiment here. So you know, cell osmolality is how much? 285. If it is kept in dilute solution, 200. What will happen to the cell? What will happen to the water movement? Because of osmosis, water will go inside, right? Cell swelling takes place, right? Cell swelling takes place. If it here, cell osmolality is 285, it is put in how much? 360, means more concentrated. What will happen? It will, cell will shrink in hypertonic solution, right? If it is kept in the same almost 280 millismol, means same, what will happen? There is no change in the volume, right? No change in the volume. So look here, intravascular, it is showing intravascular space, interstitial space, and this is the cell. They are in equilibrium with each other, right? And especially this membrane, because of this cell membrane, there is more difference, almost interstitial fluid and this plasma is almost same, right? Only difference is protein. Plasma protein is more into the blood. Otherwise, sodium, potassium, chloride, etc. is same, right? But there is major difference between the intracellular and extracellular fluid. Why? Because of cell membrane is selectively permeable, right? This cell wall, it is allowing only fat to pass, and how water is moving or sodium, potassium, etc. because of the presence of ion channels, right? Ion channels are they are not opening normally. So this is showing the difference between inside and outside. Intracellularly, sodium is low. Sodium is more outside the cell. Potassium here more. Magnesium, chloride, phosphate. Phosphate is more inside the cell. Phosphate, protein. Bicarbonate is negative charge. It is more in the extracellular. So this cell membrane selective permeability is important for the maintenance of extracellular fluid volume is critical to maintaining blood pressure. Extracellular fluid osmolarity is primary importance in the long-term regulation of volume. Right? Normally what happens? They are in equilibrium. Right? If there is imbalance, what will happen? So extracellular fluid osmolarity, because sodium is more either into the plasma or into the interstitial fluid. Major positive ion is sodium. Right? So this is a major sodium chloride balance must be maintained there. So what causes this difference between extracellular and intracellular? What is the barrier between the two is cell membrane, and cell membrane is highly permeable to water because of water channel, aquaporin, right? Much lower permeability to solutes, particularly sodium. Sodium is less permeable to the cell membrane, right? But permeable to the capillary membrane, right? That's why in the plasma and interstitial fluid, sodium is almost same, right? Sodium is almost same, but inside the cell, sodium is low. And what causes low sodium? One is less permeability, and another thing is sodium potassium pump. They are pumping 3 sodium out, right? So balancing less sodium inside the cell. Sodium pump actively removes sodium from the cell interior, right? So this is showing just what we discussed about the osmosis, right? Particular aided here, what will happen? They are fully permeable, means they will go and there is no net movement of water, right? Net movement of water, no movement of water because they are permeable. But it is semi-permeable, means water can move but not this solute. Then what will happen? Water will come this side and it will become high. Am I correct? Look here, right? And we use fluid pressure is Starling's process, like hypotonic, hypertonic we use, right? So you are aware what is hypotonic, hypertonic. So what is the net movement of water? It is going from the hypotonic solution to the hypertonic side, right? Hypertonic means more concentrated side. So osmolar differences cause water movement, right? Osmolar differences. So plasma membrane are freely permeable to water. Osmotic concentration difference between intracellular and extracellular fluid cannot be sustained. Means if there is inside the cell become osmotically more active, like sodium is leaking, sodium potassium pump is not working, what will happen? It will retain more water, cell swelling takes place, cell can die, right? Cell can die. Like after when person dies, what happens to ATP? No generation of ATP. No generation of ATP, cell is continuously leaking of the sodium, which is not pumped back. Then what will happen? It will cause retaining water also. Cell swelling takes place. That's why after death, person swelling starts. Right? Okay. So I will bring the battery.